thanks to HubSpot for sponsoring this video. So this is a juicy title for a video, but it is accurate. I wanted to go through how I went from being broke as a sort of teenager, early 20s, to being a millionaire in my 20s as well. So I didn't come from a wealthy family whatsoever. I grew up super sort of poor, really. I do get the odd comment here and there of someone sort of making the assumption that I've come from some wealthy background because of the way I speak. Now, let me tell you, the way I speak on YouTube and the sort of YouTube persona I have is not how I am in real life. In real life, I don't usually speak like this. I feel like I sound a lot more common in real life, especially when it comes to sort of being with friends and family and stuff like that. So I'm only well spoken on YouTube because I know what I'm going to say and I'm seeing sort of my bullet points of what I'm going to say. So I can put more effort into being well spoken. This isn't how I am all the time. So yeah, I grew up on benefits or welfare. I guess you would call it welfare in America. I missed out on quite a few things growing up. And it's not a bad thing because it actually makes me appreciate a lot of the things that I have now. I look back and I think back and I think to myself, you know, it's a shame I didn't get to experience those things, but if I had, I probably would have had a baseline of what I expect. So I appreciate everything that I have more than ever. I'm reading notes here because I've had to write down what I'm going to say so that I can get the timeline right. But yeah, I had never been on holidays abroad. I had never even tried restaurant foods like Chinese, Italian, Japanese, or anything like that until I was an adult. I never got to try those things as a kid and as a teenager. A fancy meal for me was getting a pizza in on the weekends or getting a KFC. It's something my family would get here and then. That was considered fancy for me. That was considered fancy for my family. I hadn't even ever stepped inside a cinema until I was 14. I actually vividly remember the first film that I watched at cinema was Casino Royale, the James Bond movie. What a fantastic movie to watch as well as my first movie. But yeah, at the age of 14 was the first time that I had ever been to the cinema. I also wasn't academically clever. I think, again, I do get a few assumptions here and there. People thinking I'm super smart and I went to a university. They just ask straight away what university I've been to, when in reality, I've never even been to university. In school, I used to get average or below grades. Some classes I failed actually because school just wasn't for me. I feel like I didn't really fit in at school. So yeah, academic wise, I didn't have that going for me either. Now, when it comes to my late teens and my early 20s, by the time I had finished school, 18, 19, you know, I was broke like any student. I was just trying to figure out what to do next. Issue was, I also didn't really have any proper qualifications like I did. In the UK, you basically have to have a level 3 qualification to go to university. I sort of did get a level 3, but it wasn't that great. I could have gone to university. I did have enough points. I think it worked on a point system back then. But yeah, I did have enough points to go to university. But even then, I knew it wasn't something I wanted to do because what I did in sort of school at the end of school was learn sort of business and accounting. And I'm so glad I didn't become an accountant because that would have been so boring. I was making money here and there from sort of odd side hustles, odd little jobs here and there. But I can remember that I never really ever had more than £500 in my bank account. And usually it was less than that. I think the most I remember was £500. And I remember seeing that and thinking to myself, oh my God, I have so much money in my bank account. Which is just crazy when I think back now. I was just about getting by, and at the same time, I couldn't rely on my parents. My parents didn't have any money themselves, and they weren't going to give me any of the money they had. So I had to sort of figure things out for myself. It stayed this way until I was around 21. Around 21, 22 was when things really started changing for me. Even though people like me like to call themselves entrepreneurs, I actually just prefer to see myself as a creator. So I'm someone who's making stuff online, usually stuff that's digital. If you're interested in finding out more info on the creator economy, I'd recommend checking out HubSpot's Business of Creators report. In it, you'll find data and insights that provide a clear picture of the creator economy, and you'll learn how creators and brands can collaborate on successful campaigns. It's just stuff that I do pretty much. In the guide, you'll find data from 300 plus marketing and business specific content creators, including how they fund their business and how financially successful their business is. You'll also find insights on the most effective ways for marketing and business-focused content creators like myself to earn a profit. A list of top channels that creators use to reach their target audience, from blogs to social media, newsletters, events, and more. The do's and don'ts for brands looking to form successful partnerships with content creators, and tips for content creators to help them invest in relationship building with brand partners. So if you're interested in learning more about the creator economy, check out the report, which is completely free to download. I'll leave a link to it down in the description below. So one thing I was always interested in is tech, gadgets, computers, the internet, anything to do with that sort of stuff, I was always interested in. I remember being that kid in school, sort of just trying to get on the internet at school because I didn't have internet at home. I don't think I got internet at home until like the mid 2000s. I think it was like 2006, 2007. That's actually when I got internet at home. You know, whenever I wanted to use internet, I'd have to go around a friend's house, or I'd have to go around like a grandparent's house or something. They're the ones who had internet. So yeah, anything like that, anything to do with tech, anything to do with internet, it was something I was interested in. It was something that I always had a passion about, but I didn't really know you can make money from it. So it's not something I really pursued or really even thought that, you know, it would be an actual thing when I'm an adult. But at the age of 18, I started a little blog that a lot of long-time followers will remember, where I was sharing Android home screen customizations and Android app sort of customizations. Just stuff that I thought was interesting. You know, I just shared it on this little blog. I definitely had no idea what I was doing. I was learning as I was going along. I had no idea what it was like to run a website, build a website. I was very much just sort of winging it. But because I was interested in it, that evolved into learning design, specifically web design and UI design. I spent those years from 18 to around 21 just learning as much as I possibly could about making websites and designing. I was doing all of this off of a laptop that I had to share with my family, share between 5 of us. So it's not like I was sitting on my laptop 12 hours a day trying to figure this stuff out. I'd only get a few hours every day to sort of try this stuff, to go onto my blog, post stuff and learn anything that I needed to learn. But then at the age of 21, that's when I started making some money. So over those years, I was sharing designs on websites like Dribbble. Most of it was concept work because obviously I didn't have that much client work. I wasn't getting client work. So most of it was concept work. But that actually really helped, because me having concept work, just showing my style, sharing designs, ended up getting me clients, because clients would see something, they would see a design, they would see something I had made, and they'd be like, hey, we want you to make our website or make our app look like that. So don't ever feel like, oh, you know, if you don't have any real work, you're not going to get any clients. No, that is not the case. Please do experiment. Please do come up with concept work. Please do just come up with made up stuff, because having a portfolio of made up stuff is better than having a portfolio of absolutely nothing. Because I was regularly posting on Dribbble, I ended up coming up in the top 20 for designers in London. So if someone was looking for a designer in London, I'd be on the sort of first page for designers available for hire. And yeah, again, that really, really helped. Just because I was regularly posting, I was sort of building a following. And then I started making pretty good money. You know, I went from making a few hundred a month to making 5,000 a month, which for me was an outrageous amount of money at the time. I was thinking to myself, 5,000 a month, this is absolutely crazy. I'm not gonna lie, I felt like I was rich. I felt like this is the dream. Like, I have completely made it, especially because I went from barely scraping by to now making more money than my parents had ever made. At the same time as doing client work, I was also messing around with website templates, specifically Tumblr themes. So I was a heavy Tumblr user. I had my own Tumblr blog. I understood the platform very well. I was messing around with sort of Tumblr customization, you know, having my own Tumblr blog. I wanted to make it my own. I wanted to customize it as much as I could. So I naturally just went through the Tumblr theme documentation to work out how I could do different things with my Tumblr blog. That ended up evolving into making themes. And I made a free theme first. And if I actually have a look at the free theme, it's still fairly popular. It's still being used by over 70,000 different Tumblr blogs, which is just wild. And then that evolved into going into the Tumblr theme garden and making premium themes for the Tumblr theme garden. And that's when my income absolutely exploded. Because some months, some of my best months when making Tumblr themes, I was making $30,000 a month. So at 21, 22, making $30,000 a month, that was absolutely outrageous for me. And the crazy thing was, 99% of it was profit. The only sort of expenditure that I had was my computer, internet, and my own time. There weren't actually many other expenses making Tumblr themes. However, at the same time, I knew it wasn't sustainable and I knew it wouldn't last forever. So instead of spending that money, getting all this money, having it accumulate, instead of spending it, I started just saving it as much as I possibly could, just because I knew this wouldn't last. I only started spending money on things that would remove stress from my life. So things like having a reliable car, having a good computer, just anything else that could remove any sort of friction or any stress from my life. That's where I spent money. But any other money, I would save it. For the first time in my life, I knew what it felt like to not worry about bills and expenses. I'm not going to deny it's an indescribably good feeling, and it's something I still think about all of these years later. The rest of the money that I was putting aside to purchase my own home, because I knew that living with my parents, just being in that one little room, being in my parents' house, being in a council house, I knew that I had to sort of get out from there and have my own sort of space, my own freedom. So after purchasing my own home in 2016, I knew that I had to start expanding my income streams. So instead of just two, the client work and the Tumblr themes, I expanded my income streams into doing e-commerce. So I have a ULX store, YouTube, other digital products like I am now, like wallpapers and ebooks and presets and things like that, affiliate income, and of course investments into things like stocks and shares and stuff like that. I've shared various videos on my channel already on different income streams and how I make money, so make sure to check those out if you haven't seen them already. However, with a lot of this income that I was making, I was reinvesting around 60 to 80% of it, of course, after tax. So in the UK, taxes are quite high. There's no denying that. For example, if you pay yourself 100,000 a year in the UK, you take home after tax around 67,000. But even after the taxes, my net worth is now well over $1 million when I add up the value of my house, my investments, and my businesses. But there are quite a few important things that I've learned over the years of sort of wealth accumulation, building my wealth, and sort of trying to just figure things out, because I've had no one to teach me. I've very much figured things out as I go along. The most important thing is that none of this happened overnight. There's no get rich quick scheme. There's no hack. There's nothing like that. Everything I've done has taken years of work. You know, getting from 18 to 21, that's 3 or 4 years of, well, 21, 22, that's 3-4 years of hard work trying to just figure out and learn stuff. People usually spend that time in uni, which is completely fine as well. You know, they go to uni, they learn something, they learn a skill. That's pretty much what I did. I just did it at home and I learned something that thankfully could make me money. I'm not clever or smart either. I just think of myself very average. I think the most important thing is that I was just consistently learning and applying myself, taking the initiative to learn stuff, to make stuff. No one was telling me how to do it. I was just figuring out on my own. Another thing which I feel like a lot of people don't like to talk about is that there is some luck involved. Definitely. Like, I don't care what anyone says. There is some luck involved. I was lucky to choose the right skills to learn. I was lucky to choose the right products to make. I was lucky that I was born in a country like the UK and grew up in a country like the UK. And I'm lucky that I get to speak English. Like I know English, a language that is obviously the universal language of the world, you could say. I've realized that income growth is probably the most important thing. Doing a regular 9-to-5 job doesn't unfortunately maximize income growth. You have to have multiple revenue streams that can scale and are not tied to your time output. Putting money aside for investments and bills is something I do first before I start spending it. So a lot of people, what they'll usually do is they'll get paid and then they'll pay their bills, they'll spend whatever the money they have over the month, whether that's eating out, buying stuff, whatever. And then whatever money they have left over, they'll put that into investments or savings or whatever. I do it the other way around, where I think to myself, okay, this is how much I'm going to put into savings straight away, and this is how much I need to account for bills. And then of course I still give myself a good chunk of money to enjoy myself, eating out, buying stuff, whatever it is. But the most important thing is that I put money aside for my investments and my bills first, rather than at the end of the month or rather than after I've spent my money. Lifestyle creep is definitely a real issue and something I'm guilty of myself. So as you earn money, you naturally spend more of it, you naturally up your expenses. And yeah, I am 100% guilty of that. I now spend more on things like holidays, eating out, and cars. It's not entirely a bad thing because I am using that money to sort of explore different parts of the world and try different foods, which, yeah, you know, anything that can help you sort of expand your horizons, expand your sort of cultural experiences can be really beneficial. But then some things do end up sort of having a baseline of your expectations, and anything less than that baseline can be less satisfying. So yeah, lifestyle creep, definitely an issue, something that I'm always tackling with, something that I always have to remind myself, you know, this is better than normal, this is better than average, I need to appreciate what I have. However, $1 million isn't as much as people think. I remember as a kid, I always used to think, oh my God, $1 million, that's an absurd amount. I can't even imagine what that's like. But it's still not enough to stop working. I still need to make money. I still need to pay bills. I still have to sort of work. I still have to sustain my life. $1 million isn't enough really to sort of not do that, to completely retire. But it definitely eradicates a lot of the financial concerns in my life, which is probably the biggest source of stress in most people's lives. If I suddenly need 5,000, 10,000, or maybe even 50,000 for an emergency, to be honest, I don't know what emergency would require 50,000. But even still, like, I have that safety net. I know that I I can easily sell some of my portfolio if I need to. I know that I can get a loan, or I can just simply make the money if I don't need it right now and I need it in a few months. So yeah, that's just a short little story of how I sort of went from being a broke little sort of teenager, early 20s person to now sort of being a millionaire in my 20s. A lot of people like to overcomplicate it. They always like to think there's some hack, there's, you know, some crazy trick or whatever. It really isn't. It is quite simple, actually. I think making money and sort of doing this sort of stuff, I don't know, maybe I say it's simple because I've done it. So is that me just thinking to myself, oh, you know, because I've done it, it's simple? I'm having a crisis right now. But that's what I'm thinking. Like, I think to myself, I haven't had to do anything crazy complex. I haven't had to sort of really grind or hustle, because I'm not really into the sort of grind and hustle culture. I don't really believe in that. I think it's important to have a good balance. But for sure, maybe in my late teens and early 20s, I was grinding, I was hustling, because I was just trying to learn as much as I could and sort of apply myself and try and make money and go from not having any money to being comfortable like I am now. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to check out one of my other videos. I made a video on how much YouTube pays me. I also made a video on the best purchases in my 20s. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter and subscribe for more.